Welcome back, everyone, to Great Quarter Gals. Of course, the wonderful show Kaylee, Nix, and I do every single week that helps not only just represent women in transportation, but showcase some of the amazing women in our industry that are doing really great things to advance the industry, but also bring more women into it as well. And unfortunately, it is just me today. So, Great Quarter Grace it is. Of course, Kaylee's out there taking some much needed time off, much deserved time off. And we'll actually get to that a little bit today as well. We're going to be reviewing a couple of areas of, I'd say, investment in women in this space, but really women in the workplace as a whole. There's been interesting studies that have come out of what 2023 represented for women in all industries. And I think some different ways that we can learn from the behavior that was experienced in 23, especially coming into 24 and making it our best and focusing on bringing half of this population into this wonderful industry as it continues to grow. We also have a wonderful guest joining us later in the show as well from the Tenney group. We have Meghan Meurer joining us, and we're going to be talking about M&A in the space, and most importantly, a lot of her time and talent within the industry as well, and how that's worked into her current role at the Tenney group too. And so let's dive into it. Let's start here with some of these studies. There's a few that we're going to touch on in particular, and we're going to go into a couple of areas I think might get a little, I hate the word triggering. I think that's so 2021, but I'd say difficult and hard to move forward from. I mean, here's the best part about focusing on bringing other people into the industry. And that is, it's going to take work from the people in the industry to make those changes and get over those challenges. Like anything else that we do, look at the technology that we've increased and entered into our space. That was hard. That's difficult. Change management is hard. It's one of the most difficult things companies can go through. So why would bringing different people and different ethnicities and different backgrounds into our industry be easy? Just by that. So, we're going to go into a little bit of tough subjects here, but that's why we love having this platform and, of course, love doing this work with Kaylee and I as well. First study I want to touch on is a study called Lean-In Study. And as we post this out into our different areas of social media, I'll make sure that I go through and add some of the links to these studies so you can check them out as well. And we're going to start off on a positive note. So one of the things that the Lean-In study found is that women are becoming more ambitious. And I want to say I think that ambition has been there before, but the confidence behind the ambition is starting to really come out. 9 in 10 women in the ages 30 and under are looking to be promoted into their next level in the next year or so. And I think that right there showcases that we're all looking to aspire. 3 in 4 women in the survey are looking to become senior leaders at some point. So we're not just joining a workforce to play along and be a pawn. That's more of a chess terminology, not so much a pawn. But we want to actually do something. We want to have a really great a footprint and acknowledgement within the industries that we serve. So I think this is positive news if we're looking at anything. Now, what we need to get over right now is, well, we're working on the payment gap, which I think we're really starting to get along with. And I think focusing on women in senior leadership roles will help with that. But overall, what they call the advancement gap is still there. So for every 100 men promoted from an entry level to manager, and 87 women in an organization are promoted as well. So again, that's actually like right around the pay gap, if I'm correct on that. But I think that showcases how much the pay gap actually coincides so much with the advancement gap. To give you a little bit more background on that, on those numbers too, men end up holding about 60% of manager level positions, while women just hold 40%, which I think is actually pretty great to hear. That's nowhere close in our industry. This again is women in all types of industries, but I think it's still showcasing. I mean, to be honest with you, I think the population is close to 51, 49. Like we should be closer to those levels. But if anything, it shows promise for our industry if we're seeing all industries getting to that 40 for women. Now, of course, as a result of that, fewer women are being promoted to directors, and the number of women do decrease at every level underneath those levels as well. So know that if you actually promote a woman within your four walls, there's a likelihood that that ambition and then advancement gap will improve as well. Now, we're going to go over a few things I think that are actually hurting a lot of women, according to the study in particular, when it comes to how they feel in a workplace, let alone their ambition to be promoted into a higher level as well. The first area we're going to start off with, because I think this is one of the easiest things that we could get over if we really focus our time and attention on that, and that's microaggressions. So clear examples of a microaggression are using words like sweetheart, doll, work wife, just that type of terminology that, sure, I think women respond to in the office or in a work environment, but would probably likely love to not respond to if the opportunity was there. A big one in particular, I think you see, especially, I think you actually see this more in diversity problems and microaggressions that see the same behavior but giving it a different description, right? Calling women bossy compared to men who are go after what they want. Young and promising is a nice terminology used mostly on women in the workplace. This is kind of getting more into, I'd say, the diversity aspect of things, using phrases like "you're so articulate," or if there's two of a same different ethnicity within a room, calling them by the wrong name and saying, "Oh, sorry, wrong person," as if clearly we know where you're going there. And then even when it comes to, I think, transgendered or different LGBTQIA plus groups within the workplace, using phrases like "you don't look like" or "I didn't think you were," based off of their gender. So just being mindful and cognizant of how that behavior comes off and makes people feel comfortable in the workplace, right? It's about putting each other empathy, leading with empathy, and putting someone in your shoes. Here's another couple of microaggressions I found interesting as well. Acting as if a woman is weak. For instance, if we're moving boxes, like making sure all the men are helping first, going to women. Trust me, your girl can lift a box over here if she needs to. Furniture, too. I love moving furniture, so ask me. Now, I might be lazy and might not want to do it, but I can sure move some furniture along it side any man, that's for sure. This is a big one as well. Invasion of space or touching. I find that if you get cubicles, you actually avoid this more. And there's a term out there called manspreading, where men tend to leave things in the office in places that aren't technically theirs and on other people's desks, avoiding those situations as well. Also, making sure that you're not interrupting and that you hear comments on, even if it feels like it's coming from an emotional state. When it gets more into diversity initiatives as well, here's a couple of facts that came from that same Lean-In study. Asian women are 7 times more likely than white women and men to be mistaken for someone of the same race or ethnicity, going back to, sorry, wrong person. Black women are 3 times more likely than white women and men to have to code switch to change the way that they're speaking or are acting, dependent on, or the vice versa. White women or men will change the way they're speaking to others in order to have them feel like they're included. This is, I think, is a huge one that our industry, I think, is going through now. LGBTQIA plus women are 5 times more likely to hide aspects of their personal lives and more than 2.5 times more likely to worry about appearing professional than others in the workplace as well. And so I think I do want to leave this here with a couple of ways to improve, because I think that there's ways that we can really make women and feel more comfortable and, at the end of the day, ambitious towards their work. One is work from home policies. This study found not just women, but men agree that the flexibility of their jobs help them stay in their job longer and avoid reducing their hours over time. They actually usually end up working more hours. And women in particular who worked in more hybrid or remote work actually felt less fatigued and less burnt out. 29% of women and 25% of men who say they work remotely have biggest benefits and fewer unpleasant interactions with coworkers too. So that one I think will help everyone across the board. The second is embrace women's ambitions. Hold moonshot events. We see these all over the tech space in our industry. Hold these events that allow people to bring up new ideas and get into their creative side. And at the end of the day, worst case, wow, your business now has a full list of different ideas that could probably help accelerate your growth in your work down the road. Have career days where people come in and express what they want to do in their career and what they're looking to do over time, whether that's 10, 20 years down the road, and have them speak on what their outcome is. That way you have an idea as their leader of what that you should be focused on in addressing those. And if they have a passion outside the workplace, let's say they're in accounting and they love accounting, they're doing a great job for you, but they also have an Etsy where they make quilts or they make Taylor Swift friendship bracelets. Address that, appreciates people's passions outside of work. That will make them feel more included and more open to speak on them at work as well. And worst case, hold events where they can, of course, have little pop-up shops inside your office. Have all of that is just going to include a wonderful culture at the end of the day. And then also make small rules around microaggressions. Keep a clean office, get cubicles, provide a personal workplace, have a women's lounge. I know there's like at least 2 empty offices right now in your building that you're not using and you're hoping people would use for meetings, but they're not. Make it a women's lounge. Make it a safe place that women can go to. Celebrate different holidays like LGBTQIA plus holidays, and don't just have it because you know someone in your office is out. Not everyone will be, but this could help with that. And take holidays like Juneteenth off and recognize those holidays and do the research. Because I think that the big area that people a lot of times go over is it's not minorities' job to teach others about how minorities are affected. The internet's there. A lot of us know about the history. It's our turn to give back to those communities as well. So there's some hot tips for 2024 ways to improve our workforce. And I think what's even better is that we have a guest here today who is a part of a group working in the M&A space, has been such a wonderful contributor to our industry over 14 minimum years in logistics as well. And I want to introduce her to all to you, the Chief Commercial Officer at the Tenney Group, Meghan Meurer. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm happy to have you on.
Grace, thanks so much. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, and again, you have such a wonderful background in this space. Can you highlight some of your experience in supply chain so our audience gets a great idea of how you've been helping us out?
Yeah, absolutely. I started my career at Schneider National, and so I really cut my teeth there. Wonderful organization out of Green Bay. Actually started my career in driver recruiting before moving into sales and outside commercial capacity there. But Schneider is just such a wonderful organization, and really had an amazing time at Schneider. When I started off, I actually did a lot of driver ride-alongs, and it was really important for all the employees at that organization to get a feel for the operational components of running a trucking company before you got into any sales or commercial role. So just learned a lot in my time there, and really enjoyed understanding day in the life of a truck driver and what they go through day in and day out, shipping, receiving, technology, you name it. It was a really interesting way to get started in transportation.
When you're doing those ride-alongs, what was what surprised you the most? What was the situation where you're just like, wow, this is a really tough job?
Yeah, it is. It's such a tough job. Shipping and receiving is very challenging. It's very difficult, right? Detainment is real. And it's just hard. It's a hard space to play in, not only being away from your family for weeks on end, of course, but sleeping in the cab of a truck, figuring out where you're going to eat your next meal, and then dealing with shipping and receiving and being detained frequently. And then all of the safety risks that happen just driving down the road, right? Weather, inclement weather, you name it, they're going through all of it. And so it was really eye-opening experience.
Yeah. We've started getting a little bit of bad weather up here, and I was just thinking about that the other day. The fact that, we have all these individuals out here riding around on ice just because we want things tomorrow or delivered 2 hours from now, right? And we couldn't do that without the infrastructure we built with drivers today. And now you're at the Tenney Group, and you're in this amazing uh, C-level role. Can you elaborate on what exactly your role is and the responsibilities that you have in the commercial space?
Yeah, sure. So, Tenney Group, we're M&A sell-side advisors. Our firm is based in Franklin, Tennessee. And so we really walk alongside business owners who are looking to sell their company and transition into the next phase of their lives or their careers. And so it's a great space. We typically serve organizations that are between 20 million and 250 million in revenue, almost all family-owned and operated trucking and logistics companies, second, third generation, looking to exit. And so we're based in Franklin, Tennessee, and exclusively focused in the transportation and logistics space on the asset heavy and asset light side of the business.
This is an interesting question, I think, especially when people consider what exactly you're doing in this space, M&A action in particular. But I think I'm interested in your answer for this. What aspect of your role and the work that you do on a daily basis do you find the most rewarding?
Oh yeah, great question. So, like I said, we get to walk alongside owners, right, that are exiting their companies and selling. And so, I would say the most rewarding part of that is post transaction, seeing what these owners do after they exit their organization. And so, there's just unbelievable and amazing stories that we hear every single day. Some that are interested in real estate ventures or other things and hobbies that might be of interest to them, hunting and fishing and boating, all of their personal hobbies and things that they want to spend more time doing. But the most impactful are the owners that have found just unbelievable ways to give back to their community or their employees, or some that go on these international trips and give back, mission trips and give back to their, their churches and their church communities. And so just a lot of really neat stories around how folks are leaving their impact and their legacy is living on even after the transaction happens.
Yeah, what I love about this industry, especially leaders in this space that you work with, it's they put their all into it, and so many hours and so many years of their life. And for you, it must be really fun to see kind of like the not the end of that American dream, but like the outcome, right, of that American dream, and now allowing them to move forward in life. And that's, I'm sure, really fun to see what different paths people take over time.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, they're able to give back in ways that they might not have imagined when they were running their trucking company. And so it's really neat to see what they do with that generational wealth that they've created over the last 30, 40, 50 years sometimes.
So cool. Let's talk about M&A action in the space today. Looking back at 23, as we're first episode of 24, happy to have you on for this exact reason. Looking back at the past year, what were some of the interesting trends and challenges you saw in the M&A space, and how are you taking that into 24?
Yeah, it was a tough year, right? Trucking, it was a really hard year for trucking. I think coming off of these historic highs, whether it be rates or volume or asset valuations, right? Coming off of market highs and then really plummeting to market lows in a fairly short period of time is very uncommon in our space, right? We're used to 5, 7, 10-year cycles, but not 3. And so I would say 2023 in general was a really tough year. I know in your study you were just mentioning remote work, and I think if anything, the silver lining might have been the ability to have and understand and develop async workforce or hybrid workforce and what that's going to do to our future of work. I think there's some silver lining in that. But most of our relationships are all built on in-person meetings, right? Building trusting relationships with people, either on the buy side or the sell side, and really working to be master connectors with those two groups of people. And you have to do that in person. And so how we're addressing it in the upcoming year is really, we're going to continue to travel. We attend anywhere from 40 to 50 industry events every single year. Everything like your FreightWaves event, TIA, TCA, ATA, all your known key pillar industry events to state associations as well. So we plan to still do that. And I would say we're cautiously optimistic about transactions next year. I use the term cautiously optimistic because I think transactions are still going to get done. Deals are still going to get done in 2024 because hopefully the market is just less volatile than it has been over the last couple of years. So, I think there are more known factors going into 24 than probably the last 2 years. And so, I would say that this normalization, we're cautiously optimistic about the upcoming year.
Yeah, I think anyone in this space right now would like a little more normal market cycle, if anything. So we're all going to agree with you on that one. And I'm interested as we go into 24, and we've seen, convoy situation happen in the past year. We've seen technology, I don't want to say take a beating, but take a little, people are looking a little bit closer at the investments of that space and how it's being applied to various businesses within logistics as well. How do you and how's the Tenney Group look at the offerings of its clients and how it balances technology, but also the human element as well?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Whenever we talk about just risk in general or disruptive factors, I think at 10,000 feet, we always think about two main buckets, right? One is technology. The second is just regulation in general. And those have probably been the two pillars of risk that we view things through over the years. Technology, it's unbelievable all the changes that have happened, like you said, in my 13, 14 years in supply chain, starting back with ELDs, right? And I was at Schneider and they were kind of on the forefront of, implementing ELDs throughout and integrating them throughout their fleet, which was thousands of drivers on the road. And it's just evolved so much since then. Geofencing and EDIs and APIs and camera technology. I think we're really interested to see what API does, in the upcoming years and some of the connectivity, but also AI. I think AI is going to really change the way that we view and analyze data, the way brokerage operations work. Obviously, electric and autonomous trucks are huge. ERP, I've been through 2 ERP transformations. That one is always interesting to me, just the general connectivity of your TMS and CRMs and WMS tools together and how that can drive efficiencies. Freight profitability is probably another one that just so many more tools and platforms available to analyze your network and optimize your network today than 10, 12, 15 years ago. And even how the drivers operate, right? I think there's been a lot of technological changes. When you think back to even Qualcomm to OmniTrax and workflow solutions, there's been a lot of changes in the way drivers are getting more efficient on the road as well. So I would say that's kind of the technology bucket that we view things through. And then the other one is just regulation, right? And staying at the forefront of all the changes that continue to happen on the regulatory front. Hours of service has been a big one, obviously, over the years. I kind of bucket California in its own little category and all the different regulation that is impacting California and then how that's going to spread throughout the United States, from CARB compliance to, of course, AB5 here recently was huge. And then ESG, you're talking about diversity in your study. ESG, the measurement and compliance around ESG and how that impacts the way that we do business moving forward. I think that's going to be an interesting one to watch as well.
Yeah, and on that note, too, as we wrap up, I'm interested, DE&I initiatives, how important is that to the Tenney Group, and how do you work that into your everyday work you do in your role as well?
Yeah, great question. Whenever we think about diversity, certainly I have my commercial hat on, and we're always talking about diversity in terms of revenue streams, right? Customer base and revenue streams. When I put my hiring hat on, we're thinking about it a lot in terms of not just gender and ethnicity, right? I think a lot of organizations kind of anchor to those two things whenever we talk a lot about diversity in the workforce. But I think what's really important is an organization's receptiveness to diversity of perspective, which is generally much harder, obviously, to measure, not necessarily quantifiable. But we at Tenney Group, we really like to use the term co-create. And so when we think about diversity of perspective within our organization, it's really important that we don't always have a top-down approach to how we create solutions within the organization or grow the company. We really like to co-create with our teams and all of our employees. I think it's a much different approach when a CEO might come in and say, hey, we need to go from point A to B to C, versus give the vision of C is where we're going. What's the best way to get there, right? And so, we like to use the term co-create to encourage diversity of perspective within the Tenney Group.
I love that answer. And the best part about the show is I love making sure that our viewers leave here with some actionable items. And that right there, I think, is a perfect way leadership can be improved across the space. Meghan, I want to say thank you so much for being a part of today's show and the work that you're doing. And honestly, from an outsider's perspective, anytime I've worked with the group, it has been mostly women that I've talked to and worked with outside Spencer. So I thank you so much for being a part of the team as well. And for our audience, where can they reach you if they have any questions or want to learn more about the group?
Yeah, our website, thetennygroup.com, is a great spot to start.
Love it. Thank you so much, Meghan. For our audience as well, as we enter this wonderful year, 2024, get ready for some great quarter gals work. We've got a wonderful guest lined up for this new year. We've got some wonderful events that we'll be attending too that you can join with us as well. Make sure you head to our live.freightwaves.com to check out events that we'll be at. Of course, some of our live events too. We have the whole year already set up for you guys. So as you're working through your plans for 2024, don't forget those too. Until then, thank you so much for checking out our first episode of the year, and we'll be back next week with Kaylee too. 1, 2, 3, go!